I think that's being very intentional about how you spend your time. So there's a minimal amount of time in the day. We all have the same number of minutes and hours. Okay, so if let's just take writing a book, since that's on my head. This is the hardest thing that I'm going to do all day long. So I'm going to choose the hours when I'm most awake, when I'm most, my brain is really humming. This is the morning hours. And then I'm going to protect those hours. And every day, whether I feel like it or not, I'm going to get to my desk and I'm going to start writing. And I'm going to do that every morning for a year until that book is written. And so it's saying, I'm not going to let my inbox, my phone messages, my emails get in the way of that thing that I'm committed to, the most important part of my day. And then I'm going to leave these other things that are time consuming, annoying, all that other stuff, but it's less of a priority. And I'm going to put them later in the day. So I think to answer your question, it is being very intentional about how you focus your attention in your day as a leader and as a staff person at any level.
Michele Rigby Assad, welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Thank you so much for being here with me. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Michael.
Thank you very much for your presence and for taking the time to join me here. So Michele, you have a book coming out in just about 8 days from today's recording. So on January 14th, Conquering Obstacles and Achieving Your Life's Mission. And I was particularly intrigued to speak with you because I'm really curious about this notion of getting things done, but getting the right things done. And a lot of that is about moving forward also in the right direction. And right before we started this recording, you shared a really interesting story that I think will get us right into the mix. So please go ahead, Michele.
Yeah, absolutely. So my new book called Get Off the X is about getting out of your personal and professional comfort zones and obviously being willing to do hard things and being willing to go where other people won't go. And as part of that, I've learned in my own life that the most meaningful things are the hardest. So here I was during the 10 years of my intelligence career in the CIA, I spent a tour in Baghdad during the hardest part of the war. And as you can imagine, we're trying to just stop the next terror attack from happening. So you're running with your hair on fire all day long. You're exhausted because you're just trying to manage all of the intelligence that's coming in, package it appropriately, and then get it out to the warfighter or the National Security Council or the White House. And so you're working holidays, you're working weekends, you're working, 16 hours a day. It's exhausting. And it was probably 3 or 4 months into that 1-year tour where I suddenly realized that this source was lying to us for like a year or a year and a half. And so we had spent all this time, all this energy running a source, which, by the way, is not an easy thing to do in a war zone, very dangerous. And he'd been fabricating information and selling it to us as intelligence. And I thought to myself, oh no, because now I have seen what a fabricator looks like, and I'm realizing that we are likely running multiple fabricators and liars. And then I just realized, my gosh, we're working so hard, but we're focused on the wrong things. So I had to take this extra energy, take a step back and say, okay, I can't do this anymore because every time I put out bad intelligence and our brothers and sisters roll off a military base to action that intel, if it's bad, then I'll tell you what, it's on me when they get injured or they get killed or they get blown up in the process. So I have to take a step back and be strategic and say, is this source really who he says he is? Is he really a terrorist leader? Is he giving us good stuff or not? And it was a real changing point in my life because I realized, my God, I spend a lot of my time running in the wrong direction. Running hard, running with all my energy, and I'm not getting anywhere. And so how often do we do that in our lives?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think this is probably a question that should be asked more frequently, but probably is not asked enough. I'm curious how this question of am I doing the right thing? Am I running after the right thing? How do I know what is the right thing to be running after? How was this the turning point for you to start asking that question and to start uncovering the different ways of thinking about this?
Yeah, absolutely. So that was the launch point for me to say, okay, I have a lot of tools at my disposal working for the CIA in this war zone. So I'm not going to take what the sources give me as gospel. I'm going to question everything. And then I'm going to see what are the results of that intel collection. I'm going to contact the military and I'm going to say, when we told you the car bomb was at X location, did you find the car bomb? Or I was told the missiles were located in this orchard west of Baghdad. Did you go to the orchard and find the missiles or not? And so I know it sounds really straightforward and easy, but when you're exhausted, when you have a to-do list that's like a mile long and you can just barely get through the minimum every day, you don't have the extra mental capacity to be strategic. But I realized like I have to. This is a matter of life and death. And so once I actually started asking those hard questions and then also testing our sources, actually really there's a bunch of clever things you can do in intelligence to test a source to see if they're telling you the truth. After all that, I realized, oh my God, we've been wasting time on lying sources. A lot of them, too many of them.
How does this fit into our daily lives, if you will? So you're obviously sharing an example from your time at the CIA and as an engineer in the field, where there's clear uncertainty around sources. From my time in my military, I know that quite well as well. But how does this impact us in our daily lives? This question of the verification of, do we know what we're really up against, and the integrity of the information that we have.
So I think that's being very intentional about how you spend your time. So there's a minimal amount of time in the day. We all have the same number of minutes and hours. Okay, so if let's just take writing a book, since that's on my head. This is the hardest thing that I'm going to do all day long. So I'm going to choose the hours when I'm most awake, when I'm most my brain is really humming. This is the morning hours. And then I'm going to protect those hours. And every day, whether I feel like it or not, I'm going to get to my desk and I'm going to start writing. And I'm going to do that every morning for a year until that book is written. And so it's saying, I'm not going to let my inbox, my phone messages, my emails get in the way of that thing that I'm committed to, the most important part of my day. And then I'm going to leave these other things that are time consuming, annoying, all that other stuff, but it's less of a priority. And I'm going to put them later in the day. So I think to answer your question, it is being very intentional about how you focus your attention in your day as a leader and as a staff person at any level.
And is it mainly about focusing the intention, or is it also being able to look at the task itself, but in a different light,
Question
by asking some
everything.
questions?
Yes. Question everything. Is this getting me where I need to go? Like, you have a process in place at a company and you've been doing this process for years and years and years, as long as you can remember. You have to stop and say, what's the point of this? Is this getting us anywhere? Is this moving the needle? So really it is questioning the way you hire, the way you train, the way you put people into the right positions, the way you design products, the way you market. It is questioning everything and not doing things just because that's the way you've always done them.
I guess there's a lot of logic to it. I try to do that a lot of my day to day as well, but there's a lot of times where I also stop myself and think, well, am I really questioning everything? Am I really open to uncovering things that I may be doing or have been doing which are wrong, or may not be as productive or conducive for where I want to get to? And it's a scary thing to do. It's a scary action to deal with, because dealing with reality sometimes, even if it's the right thing, it's not always easy, especially
No.
when reality has hard truths to it.
Oh, this is so true. And then you look at what's happening in our culture now. We've got like the Elon Musks of the world. That man is so good at questioning everything. I love his mindset. Like, why are you doing that? Why are we spending billions of dollars developing the F-35 when the future is in uh, other types of crafts, cheaper crafts, unmanned aerial vehicles? So he's asking these really big questions, and it's really, I think, going to help people be more creative about the questions they ask and have the courage. Because, like you just said, like, it's hard to say to your company, guys, we're spending half of our day doing the wrong stuff.
It really is hard. How do you find people can adapt easiest to this notion of, oh, I'm doing the wrong thing right now, or I'm not, or I've been doing the wrong thing for the last while and now I need to recalibrate? Because it takes an ego check to deal with
Yeah.
that question, right? Because the easiest thing would be to push forward.
Yeah. So I think it can be, I mean, especially if you've got leadership that is entrenched in the old ways of doing things and you're a creative person and you see a better way, it's like the most frustrating place to be. Here's what I found. I will implement my new idea in small ways, in the ways that I can within the structure that I'm in. And my results will speak for me. So I do what I can and then I show my results to the world. So you're not preaching at them, you're showing them the evidence of doing things differently. And that might be the thing that cracks things open in your company. Sometimes you got to start small before you do the big stuff.
So for you, it's about taking baby steps to start small, start cracking it, and then be able to take the bigger piece. I was also, as you were saying that, I was thinking to myself about this notion of, a lot of the episodes in this show are about startups and about finding product market fit. It's one of them. As we're talking about this notion of doing the right things and focusing and prioritizing for founders, one of the hardest things to do is to find product market fit. We really believe in this pain point. We really believe in a problem, and then we go after it. And sometimes we too quickly go after building a solution without validating enough that the sources that we have that tell us this is a problem really are the right sources. And sometimes people are lying to us without even knowing that they're lying to us. And then when you have to pivot, that's a really hard thing to do because you've raised money from investors, you have employees, you have maybe design partners who think they want your solution, and maybe they do, but maybe they're not representative of the market. And then as a founder, you sit back and you think to yourself like, wow, okay, I need to change, I guess, what I need to do, but I don't even know how to start. And so for me, there's a lot of analogies to what you're describing in the context of maybe individuals, but also in the context of a whole organization, like the way a startup behaves and needs to decide what to do.
Yeah, I think the hardest thing when you're doing a startup or you've got a new product is like you said, you're vetting. You're vetting the audience, you're vetting the consumer, you're trying to understand how to place things. And I think we're so quick to say, well, I've asked a few questions, I vetted it. When I think you're implying, and I totally agree with you, I'm like the queen of vetting intelligence information. Like you can never ask too many questions.
You
Really.
can never ask too many questions.
No, and don't stop asking questions. And then if you do go down the wrong road, boy, it's better to make that correction now than to get further down that road. Like, okay, so there's been some money lost, but you've realized you need a tweak. Again, it's scary. It's sometimes embarrassing. You're like, I missed this. But I think you can't build a company without the humility of making corrections along the way.
How do you find is potentially helpful or effective to build a mindset around this so that it translates into the really core day to day of who we are? So we started this conversation with you saying, question everything, and and it would be very tiring to question everything if you're not adapted to it from your brain and from your mind. So how do you develop a mindset and a narrative where you can question everything and do that in a really healthy way?
Well, I think it's about being curious. So for me, like I was so fascinated by what makes a terrorist, what makes them tick, what's the psychology of terrorism, how do you become the leader of a terror cell? So for me, asking the questions to vet the source was a fascinating process. Like, so I'm vetting him, but I'm also learning in the process about where did this guy come from and what's his family like and what kind of ideology has been fed into him by whom. And so what drove that was more than anything, my curiosity to learn, always learning. And then what is so fascinating is after you've had enough of those experiences where you're having those difficult, I wouldn't say difficult conversations, they're only difficult if someone's lying. Suddenly, if someone's not telling you the truth and they're not a terror cell leader, then it's going to become difficult and you can't get your questions answered. right? They deflect, they push back, they get upset. Like there's all these things liars do when they're not telling you the truth. But that sense of curiosity, allow that to drive your approach to operations. And so that's how, in the long run, I became an expert at vetting and counterintelligence. I dealt with so many fake and lying sources that I know when the real guy shows up and walks through the door, he's a legit terrorist. It's so fascinating. You know, that guy walks through the door and he's all full of himself and arrogant and prideful. And I'm like, that's exactly how a terrorist acts. And then the guy walks through the door and he's got a limp handshake and he's shaking and he's a very small, not small as in small stature man, but small personality. And I think, I don't think you're a terrorist. So it's so fascinating, that entire process of vetting and how much you learn along the way.
Absolutely. Now, tell me, Michele, we talked a lot about how to get out of our comfort zone and how to think differently about and questioning and how to get into the mindset. But I feel like we almost skipped this question of why do we need to do that?
Why?
And I don't think it's just for saving time from running after the wrong information from a lying source. It's not just about the time. It goes. I think it's bigger than that. Well, why? So, what is a big motivation in your eyes to be doing this type of work and to get into this type of mindset?
Yeah, so for me, this concept of get off the X, which we use in law enforcement and the military and intelligence to help us learn how to survive an ambush or a terrorist attack. So the X is literally the location of that attack against you, of the ambush. In order to survive the attack or have the best chances for survival, you've got to move off that X. So that's why we say get off the X, and that's the name of the book. And I just realized, like, I know so many people who are on this crazy comfort zone X of their life, where you've just gotten into this rhythm of doing the same thing every day because it's easy, right? We're human beings and we're wired intrinsically to be efficient. And that efficiency keeps us wedded to processes and objectives that they're just simple and straightforward. So for me, if you want to have meaning in your life, you have to be strategic about pushing through the comfort zone into something that scares you. Like I always say, if you're not a little bit scared, you're not trying hard enough. And so for me, what's on the other side of that pain, of that pushing through, is incredible purpose. And I think without purpose, we human beings, we fall apart. Like we actually need that. And I see that in my friends and family around me who don't have a lot of purpose, they're withering. And so it turns out that we shouldn't run from the pain. We should embrace that because that's how we're actually put together as human beings.
I love it. So embracing the pain, that's I love the context of how looking at pain and being scared as a signal and as a testament to whether we're doing the real work. Before we end this really fun discussion, how do you want to leave us, Michele, in a way that anybody listening here can be left inspired or action oriented in this space? So what is something that potentially even anybody that's listening here can do right after listening to this that would drive us towards having this mindset?
Yeah, it's a really simple but profoundly transformative approach, which is we all get stuck. We get big stuck, we get little stuck. Like, how do I get this project done? Or what do I do with my life? So these are very different conditions of being stuck, but we're all stuck in some manner every day. And so I always say to myself, okay, Michele, here's your goal you're working towards today. What can I do right now today to push that thing forward? It doesn't mean what can I do that will be successful in pushing me forward? No, not the perfect thing, anything. And so it takes that weight of like, oh my God, I have to find the perfect next step. Most of the time, we are successful simply because every day we got up and said, today, what can I do to get off the X? No matter how simple, no matter how silly, no matter how small it is, those cumulative steps are what makes the difference, really.
I love it. Michele, thank you so much for spending this time with me. I really enjoyed it. I really appreciate it.
Thanks,
Wishing you
Michael.
best of luck with the book launch, and thank you very much for being here.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.